I still remember standing there staring at that empty cereal box on the counter, just empty, not even a crumb, just the folded over top, still sealed, like someone had tried to pretend it wasn't gone. It was 6:15 a.m., the sun barely thinking about coming up, and I needed to get my son, Leo, ready for school. Needed to get myself ready for work. And there it was. Another small, infuriating monument to Daniel's absolute obliviousness. It wasn't the box itself, not really, or even the fact that he'd finished the last of the Honey Nut Cheerios, and apparently thought refolding the cardboard was a perfectly acceptable substitute for, saying something, or adding it to the grocery list, or even, God forbid, throwing the damn thing out. It was just the sheer pattern of it, the constant, quiet erosion of my space, my routine, my sanity. My jaw was tight. I could feel that familiar throb behind my eyes, the one that usually meant I was about 2 minutes away from either screaming or just retreating into myself. I just wanted to make Leo his breakfast, hear him babble about whatever new obsession he had, and get him out the door. Simple, everyday stuff that suddenly felt like a monumental effort when every single morning started with some fresh proof that my house wasn't really mine anymore. It's been, 7 months now? 7 months since he showed up on my doorstep, duffel bag in hand, after things went south with his ex, Rachel. He said it would be a week, just a week, until he found a new place. I remember standing in this exact kitchen, sipping lukewarm coffee and telling him, yeah, sure, man. Of course. Family idiot, me. Utter idiot. I'm Michael, by the way. 42 years old, divorced father of one, trying to keep a mid-level accounting job from completely consuming my life. Daniel is my younger brother, 38, and currently a professional guest, or maybe a squatter. We always had a weird dynamic, him being the charmer, the free spirit, and me always being the one who had his head screwed on straight, or at least that's what our parents used to say. It felt less like a compliment and more like a burden sometimes, especially now. I ended up finding some stale granola bars for Leo, who just shrugged and asked if we had any more of the dinosaur eggs. Which, of course, we didn't, because Daniel probably finished those too. Leo's too young to really understand what's going on, bless him. He just sees his uncle staying over, playing video games in the living room, sometimes making him laugh. He doesn't see the unpaid bills, the empty pantry shelves, the mounting tension. He doesn't hear the hushed arguments I have with my ex-wife, Lena, when she calls to pick him up, asking if he's still there. Yeah, Lena, he's still here. Always here. That morning, I just scraped by. Got Leo fed, got him dressed, drove him to school, all while that empty cereal box mocked me from the counter. I left it there. I actually did. Just to see. Part of me, the petty, exhausted part, wanted to see how long it would take him to notice, to throw it out, to acknowledge its existence. It's not about the cereal, not really. It's about everything else. And I knew deep down that it wasn't going to change anything. This was just another Tuesday, another day in the house that wasn't quite mine anymore. And I was tired, so incredibly tired. It's easy to look back now, isn't it? To pinpoint the exact moment everything started to unravel. To see the flashing red lights that I, in my infinite wisdom and brotherly affection, sailed right past. Before Daniel moved in, my life wasn't perfect by any stretch. Lena and I had finalized the divorce about 3 years ago, and that whole messy chapter had taken a huge toll. But after a while, things settled into a kind of rhythm, a predictable, if slightly lonely rhythm. I had my Tuesdays and Thursdays with Leo every other weekend. My job at Sterling and Grant, processing payroll for mid-sized construction companies, was stable, if mind-numbingly dull. I just about paid off the last of the joint credit card debt, started contributing more aggressively to Leo's college fund. I even had a new couch, a nice slate gray sectional from Macy's, bought specifically for movie nights with Leo. It felt like I was finally building something for us, something solid. Daniel, on the other hand, was always drifting. He'd jump from one thing to another, sound engineer for a local band that never quite made it, then dabbling in graphic design, then a stint selling solar panels door to door, which lasted maybe 6 months. He had this easy charm, you know? Could walk into a room and instantly make everyone laugh, had a story for everything. People just gravitated to him. He was the fun brother, the one our parents would talk about with a mix of pride and a slight worried shake of the head. Me? I was dependable, reliable. That's what I heard my whole life. His relationship with Rachel, that was the longest one he'd ever had. They met at some music festival in Asheville about 5 years ago. She was a kindergarten teacher, steady, kind, a little bit of a free spirit herself, which I thought would be good for Daniel. They lived in her small 2-bedroom bungalow down in Raleigh, about a 3-hour drive from me. I thought, this is it. This is where Daniel finally anchors himself. They even talked about getting a dog, a golden retriever. He seemed happy, genuinely happy, for a while there. Then the calls started getting more frequent. Little complaints at first. Rachel was too controlling with money. She didn't understand his need for creative freedom. He mentioned losing his freelance gig doing web design for a local brewery. Said they just didn't get his vision. He brushed it off, but I could hear the stress in his voice. I tried to offer advice, practical stuff, but he'd just laugh it off, say I was too much of a worrier. Typical Daniel. The actual ask came late one Friday night last October. I was just settling in with a book after Leo had gone to bed. My phone rang, and it was Daniel. He sounded different, defeated. He mumbled something about Rachel kicking him out, said it was a big fight, that she'd found some texts or something he hadn't meant for her to see. He sounded genuinely remorseful for a change. Said he had nowhere to go, no money for a hotel. He asked if he could crash for just a week, Mike. Just until I sort things out, find a place in the city. I remember the exact words, just a week. And I remember my own reply, the one I regret every single day since, of course, man. Your family. Come on up. I pictured him crashing on my new couch, maybe for a few nights, while he looked for an apartment. I didn't have much room, just my bedroom and Leo's, but the living room couch was comfortable enough for a temporary stay. I even thought maybe it would be good. Company. Someone to talk to after Leo was asleep. I figured I could help him look for jobs, help him get back on his feet. He was my brother. That's what you do, right? You help family. He arrived the next afternoon in his beat-up Honda Civic, a single duffel bag, a guitar case, and a box of old CDs. He looked rough, unshaven, eyes a little red-rimmed. He apologized profusely, thanked me 1,000,000 times. We ordered a pizza, watched some football. It felt normal, almost, like the old days before all the adult responsibilities. That week, he mostly slept, played video games, and made vague phone calls about job leads that never seemed to pan out. He'd borrow $20 for gas, then another 30 for groceries, promising to pay me back once he started working. A small thing. I didn't mind, not really, but that week bled into 2. Then 3. He'd occasionally mention looking at a place, but it always fell through, or it was too expensive, or the roommate situation was weird. I started noticing the small things. The dirty dishes left in the sink, the empty juice carton put back in the fridge. The way he'd leave his shoes by the front door right where I always tripped over them. The passive, Mike, you got any more? Requests for toilet paper, coffee, snacks. The biggest red flag, the one that makes me want to kick myself now, was when I gently brought up the week turning into a month. And he just smiled, that charming, disarming smile, and said, "Don't worry, man. I'm practically your roommate now, right? It's fine. I'll get back on my feet." He even made it sound like I was being unreasonable for bringing it up. And I, being the dependable, reliable idiot that I am, just let it slide. I really thought he'd figure it out. I thought I was helping him. I just didn't realize I was actually helping him take over. That first month was a blur of small irritations. The kind you tell yourself aren't a big deal because, well, he's family. But by Thanksgiving, the small irritations had started to feel like 1,000 tiny cuts. Daniel wasn't looking for a job anymore, not really. He'd occasionally send out a resume, sometimes with me practically breathing down his neck. But mostly he spent his days on the couch, playing whatever new game had downloaded, or watching old movies. He'd sleep until noon, then wander into the kitchen for coffee, usually finishing the pot I'd made for myself at 6 a.m. I'd come home from work, utterly drained, and he'd be there, often with a half-eaten bag of chips on the sectional, the remote stuck between the cushions. My initial attempts to talk to him were gentle. Too gentle. "Hey Dan, have you seen any good job postings today?" I'd ask, trying to sound casual, like it was just a friendly chat. He'd usually grunt, or say something vague like, "Yeah, tons. Just waiting to hear back on a few big ones." The big ones never materialized. I tried putting a sticky note on the fridge with a chore list, just simple stuff. Take out the trash, wash dishes, vacuum. It lasted 2 days. The sticky note ended up on the floor, and the trash cans overflowed again. Incident 1. The Thanksgiving meltdown. Thanksgiving was the first big blow-up. My parents, Eileen and Robert, drove down from upstate New York. Lena was dropping Leo off at my place for the day before heading to her sister's. The whole house was crammed. My parents arrived, and Daniel, true to form, was still in his pajamas at 1 p.m. My mom, bless her, looked at me, then at Daniel, then back at me, her eyebrows practically disappearing into her hairline. "Daniel, honey," she said, trying to be sweet. "You're still here? I thought you were just staying for a week." Daniel gave a dismissive wave. "Things are complicated, Mom. Mike's helping me out while I get my feet under me." He flashed that charming grin at my dad, who just grunted in response. My dad, a man of few words, had already noticed the overflowing recycling bin and the stack of delivery flyers by the door. Later, while I was basting the turkey, my mom pulled me aside. "Michael, what's going on?" "He can't just live here indefinitely. You have Leo. You have your own life," I tried to explain, to rationalize. "He's going through a tough time, Mom. Rachel really messed him up. He just needs a little more runway." But even as I said it, it sounded hollow. I was tired of making excuses for him. That evening, after everyone had eaten, and while Daniel was loudly dissecting the playoff chances of his favorite football team, Lena arrived to pick up Leo. She took one look at Daniel sprawled out on my new sectional, then at me, and her face went flat. When she was leaving, pulling Leo's hand, she stopped at the door. "He's still here, Mike?" she asked, her voice low. Yeah, he's still here," I mumbled, feeling my cheeks flush. She just shook her head. "This isn't fair to Leo. You know that, right? He needs stability. Not whatever this is." She didn't wait for a reply, just pulled Leo out the door and was gone. Her words stung. They landed harder than anything my parents had said, because Lena always cut right to the chase. And she was right. It wasn't fair to Leo. Incident 2. The missing rent money. By January, I was openly asking Daniel about getting a job, about contributing. My utility bills had shot up, groceries were costing a fortune, and I was feeling the pinch. I sat him down one evening, after Leo was asleep, and tried to be firm. "Look, Dan, I appreciate you being here, but it's been months. You need to start looking for work seriously. I can't float you indefinitely," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know. It's just, applications take time. I'm waiting to hear back from that graphic design place. You know, the one I told you about? Big client. What about something temporary? Even retail, just to get some cash flow." He looked at me like I'd suggested he chop off a limb. "Mike, I'm trying to restart my career. I can't go back to flipping burgers. I'm better than that. You're living on my couch, Dan, I snapped. The politeness finally cracking. You're literally eating my food and running up my electric bill. You need to contribute. He finally relented, saying he'd apply for some delivery driver jobs. Something quick. He found one for a local pizza place within a week. I felt a surge of relief. Progress! He worked a few shifts, bringing home a little cash. He even bought a round of groceries once. I felt like we were finally turning a corner. Then, about 2 weeks later, the landlord called. I'd forgotten to pay the full rent. My account was short by $500. I was furious. I checked my online banking. The automatic payment had gone through, but then there was a withdrawal. An ATM withdrawal for exactly $500 a few days before rent was due. And I knew. I just knew. Daniel, I yelled, storming into the living room, where he was playing some sci-fi shooter. Did you take money out of my account? My debit card. Where is it? He paused the game, looking genuinely confused. What? No, I wouldn't do that. Your card's in your wallet, right? I pulled out my wallet. It was there, but it had definitely been out of my sight. My stomach dropped. I had started leaving my wallet on the kitchen counter just because I was so busy in the mornings. I was an idiot again. I checked my transaction history, matching the time of the ATM withdrawal with when I was definitely at work. Don't lie to me, Dan. The rent is short. $500 is gone from my account, and it was withdrawn from the ATM on Elm Street, right by that pizza place you work at, when I was at the office. You were the only one here. He got defensive immediately. Why would I do that? I'm working. I'm getting paid. You worked 3 shifts, Dan. And now $500 is gone. What did you do with it? He wouldn't admit it, not outright. He just kept denying it, getting angrier, saying I was accusing him, that I didn't trust him, his own brother. It devolved into a shouting match. I told him he needed to pay it back. He said he would as soon as he got his next paycheck. That paycheck, of course, never materialized because he quit the pizza job a few days later, saying the manager was a total jerk and he deserved better. The $500 was gone, and I had to scramble to cover the rent myself, dipping into my emergency fund. That was the moment I realized he wasn't just messy or thoughtless. He was actively taking advantage. Incident 3. Leo's birthday party. Leo's 6th birthday was in April. We had a small party at a local park. Just a few of his friends from school, Lena, her parents, and my parents. Daniel, surprisingly, showed up early, helped me set up the picnic table with the superhero decorations. For a moment, it felt like maybe, just maybe, he was turning a corner. He was good with Leo, always had been. He could make him giggle like no one else, but then, as the party was in full swing, I noticed Daniel talking animatedly to Lena's mom, Clara, who was notoriously soft-hearted. I walked closer, and I heard him. He was telling her this long, convoluted story about how he had a chance to invest in this groundbreaking tech startup. But he was just a little short on seed money, and it was such a shame because it was a sure thing. He was pitching her, trying to get money from my son's grandmother at Leo's birthday party. My blood ran cold. I walked right up to him, grabbed his arm, and pulled him away from Clara, who looked startled. "What are you doing, Daniel?" I hissed, my voice barely controlled. He pulled his arm away. "What?" I was just telling Clara about an opportunity. She was interested. An opportunity to separate her from her retirement savings, you mean? I snapped. You don't have a tech startup, Daniel. You haven't had a job in weeks. It's a potential opportunity. I'm networking, he shot back, his face flushing. What's your problem, Mike? It's Leo's birthday. Lighten up. My problem, I said, looking him dead in the eye, is you trying to scam my son's grandmother at his own party. That's my problem. He just stared at me for a moment, then scoffed, turned, and walked away. disappearing into the park. He didn't come back for the cake or for the presents. He just left. He finally strolled back into my house late that night, acting like nothing had happened. He never apologized, never mentioned it, and Clara, bless her heart, told me a week later that Daniel had called her and asked her again directly if she could help him out. I had to explain to my own mother-in-law that Daniel was a grifter and to please not give him any money. That was a fun conversation. The tension in the house was a living, breathing thing by then. It coded everything. My work suffered. I was constantly distracted, constantly angry. Leo noticed. He started asking why Uncle Daniel was always on the couch, why he never went to work like me. What was I supposed to tell him? My patience was razor thin. I knew I couldn't keep doing this. I just didn't know how to stop it. He was my brother, but he was slowly, surely destroying my life. The air in the house was thick, stifling. Not just from the rising summer humidity, but from the unaddressed, festering resentment that hung between Daniel and me. Every interaction felt like navigating a minefield. We barely spoke, just grunted acknowledgments or passive-aggressive remarks about who left the light on or who finished the milk. It was early June, and I was counting down the days until Leo would be with Lena for 2 weeks, hoping the quiet would bring some clarity, some way out of this mess. The moment it all finally broke completely was on a Tuesday morning, June 14th. Leo was still at school, and Daniel was, predictably, still asleep on the sectional, a blanket half pulled over his face. I had a rare day off from work. I'd been planning to finally tackle some overdue yard work, trim the overgrown hedges, maybe clean out the garage. Instead, I found myself staring at my mail pile on the kitchen counter, specifically at a thick envelope from the bank. It wasn't a statement, it was too thick for that. My heart did a quick, cold flip. I opened it. Inside was a letter, stern and formal, stating that my mortgage payment for May had been missed. Missed. That was impossible. I had automatic payments set up. I scrolled through my online banking app, my thumb shaking. My blood ran cold, again. No mortgage payment had gone out in May, but there was a series of smaller withdrawals, transactions to various online gambling sites. Some familiar, some not. All occurring over a few days in late May, totaling just over $3,000. $3,000 that should have gone to my mortgage. $3,000 that I certainly hadn't spent. My mind raced. Denial was the first frantic wave. No way, this is a mistake. My bank? It has to be a bank error. Identity theft, maybe? But deep down, a cold, hard certainty was already forming. I knew who it was. I knew. I felt a sick lurch in my stomach, like I'd swallowed a block of ice. I walked over to the sectional where Daniel was still sleeping, oblivious. The TV was still humming softly from last night, some infomercial about kitchen gadgets playing on mute. Dust motes danced in the slivers of sunlight cutting through the blinds. The smell of stale coffee and something faintly sweet, maybe leftover donuts, hung in the air. Everything felt normal, and yet completely, irrevocably broken. I found my debit card in my wallet, where I always kept it, always. But then I remembered a few days in May when I'd been particularly rushed. Just dumped my wallet on the kitchen counter. A few days when I'd been so focused on getting Leo out the door, getting myself to work, I hadn't thought twice about where my card was. The details were hazy now, but the pit in my stomach grew. I walked over to the couch. Daniel, wake up. My voice was low, raspy, barely recognizable. He groaned, pulling the blanket further over his head. 5 more minutes, Mike. God, I grabbed the blanket, pulling it back. He blinked, groggy, his eyes still half closed against the light. What is it? He mumbled. I held up the bank letter. This. What is this, Daniel? He squinted at it, his face still pillow-creased. What? Is it a bill? Just put it on the stack. No, I said, my voice rising, shaking, with a fury I hadn't known I possessed. Like, no, this is a notice. a notice that my mortgage payment wasn't made because $3,000 was withdrawn from my account. $3,000 for online gambling. In May, his eyes snapped open fully then. He sat up, pushing himself back against the armrest, a sudden defensiveness in his posture. What are you talking about? I don't know anything about that. Don't lie to me. I practically roared, the sound echoing in the silent house. Don't you dare lie to me. I saw the transactions. I saw where the money went. My card was used, Daniel, while I was at work. While you were here on my couch, what did you do? What did you do with my money? He flinched. His eyes darted around the room, anywhere but meeting mine. His face, usually so expressive, was now a mask of fear and something else. Shame, maybe, or just pure panic. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't take your money. The words came out too fast, too forced. The mortgage, Daniel. My home. Leo lives here. How could you do this? My voice cracked. Tears welled up, not of sadness, but of pure, incandescent rage. The walls felt like they were closing in. The quiet hum of the infomercial was suddenly deafening. He stammered, I was going to put it back. I swear. I had a system. I thought I could win it back. Just a little. It was just a little, Mike, I swear. I needed a break. I just needed some money for food, for things. $3,000, Daniel? $3,000 for food? You gambled away my mortgage money. The words were a bitter taste in my mouth. I felt sick. Physically sick. My hands were shaking so hard, I had to clench them into fists. My chest felt tight, like an iron band was squeezing it. I wanted to hit him. I really did. I wanted to smash something. He tried to plead. I'll pay you back. I'll get a job. I promise. I promise, Mike. Just don't tell Mom and Dad, please. Don't tell Rachel. Don't tell Rachel? I scoffed, a bitter, humorless laugh escaping me. She already knows, doesn't she? This is why she kicked you out, isn't it? This is what she found out. It was like a puzzle piece clicking into place. All those vague mentions of Tex, of big fights. He wasn't just a drifter, he was a thief and a compulsive gambler. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't just about a cereal box, or dirty dishes, or even the $500. This was about a fundamental betrayal, a complete shattering of trust. He had taken my home, my security, my future, and gambled it away while sleeping on my couch. I stood there, breathing heavily, trying to calm the tremor in my hands. The morning light filtering through the blinds, the quiet sounds of the neighborhood starting its day, a dog barking in the distance, a car driving by. It all felt unreal, disconnected from the earthquake happening inside my living room. Get out, I said, my voice low and steady now, devoid of emotion, a dangerous calm replacing the rage. He looked up, startled. What? Mike, come on! Where would I go? I don't care where you go, I said, walking towards the front door and yanking it open. But you are not staying here. Not another minute. You have 1 hour. 1 hour to pack your duffel bag and your guitar. And then you are out. If you're not gone, I'm calling the police. For theft. His face crumpled. He looked like a small child, utterly bewildered, completely broken. But I didn't care. Not anymore. The pity, the brotherly affection, the years of trying to help him, it was all gone, evaporated in the blinding light of this betrayal. I needed him gone. And I needed to figure out how the hell I was going to save my house. He actually left, shaken, red-eyed, but he packed his duffel bag and his guitar in a daze, mumbling something about how I was being unfair, how I didn't understand. I just watched him, my face a stone. He got into his beat-up Civic and drove off, leaving behind a silence in the house that was both a relief and, strangely, a raw, gaping wound. It was over, and it had just begun. The immediate aftermath was pure, unadulterated chaos. My first call was to the bank, reporting the fraudulent transactions, though I knew deep down it wasn't exactly fraud when it was family. They opened a case, but the reality was grim. Since my card wasn't stolen and I hadn't reported it missing, recouping the money was going to be an uphill battle, possibly impossible. The mortgage was due. My emergency fund was already depleted from the previous $500 incident. I had to make some quick decisions. I called my parents, a conversation I'd been dreading. My mom, Eileen, sobbed. "Oh, Michael, my poor boy." I knew he was struggling, but this? My dad, Robert, was furious. "I'm going to go find him. He needs to pay you back. I told them not to, that it was my problem to handle, and that I didn't want them getting further involved or giving him any more money. It felt weird, protecting him, even as I was cutting him out, but I didn't want them hurt more than they already were. They offered to help with the mortgage, but I was too proud, too angry to accept. This was my mess, and I felt I had to clean it up myself. Then came Lena. I had to tell her everything, especially about the mortgage. She listened patiently, a quiet fury in her eyes. "I told you, Mike," she finally said, her voice tight. "I told you this wasn't good for Leo. This isn't good for you." She wasn't gloating, just stating a fact. She agreed to take Leo for an extra week, which was a huge relief, allowing me some breathing room to sort through the financial mess without him witnessing my stress. We talked about legal options, but going to court against my own brother felt extreme. I just wanted the problem gone, not a lifetime of family drama in the legal system. For now, I just needed to focus on saving my home. I swallowed my pride and called my manager, David, at Sterling and Grant. I told him I needed a loan, explaining vaguely about a family emergency and an unexpected financial setback. David, who'd seen me through my divorce, was understanding. He approved a short-term, low-interest loan against my next few paychecks. It would be tight, really tight. My discretionary spending was basically zero for the next few months. No more ordering takeout, no more movie nights out, just ramen and hope. The emotional roller coaster was brutal. One minute, I was filled with righteous anger, replaying Daniel's lies, his betrayal, every petty slight. The next, a wave of gut-wrenching sadness would wash over me, mourning the brother I thought I had, the family bond that felt irrevocably broken. There was also a strange, creeping guilt. Had I been too hard on him? Had I enabled him? Could I have done more? These thoughts would gnaw at me, even as the anger surged again. Relief, too, was there. A quiet, almost shameful sense of peace, that the constant tension in my home was gone, but it was fleeting, quickly overshadowed by the fear of how I was going to manage. A week later, something else surfaced. Rachel, Daniel's ex, called me. She'd heard from a mutual friend that Daniel was on the move again and wanted to know if he'd turned up at my place. I told her he had been and that he was gone now. She listened, then sighed. "Michael," she said, her voice soft but firm. "He was doing this before, with my money. Little bits at first, then my savings, then my credit cards. That's why I kicked him out. He has a serious gambling problem. He needs help. Professional help, not just a place to crash." It hit me like a ton of bricks. It wasn't just me. He'd done this to her too, and probably to others. This wasn't a temporary lapse in judgment. This was a pattern, a deep-seated destructive problem. The realization, while painful, also brought a strange clarity. This wasn't my fault. I hadn't created this. I had just been the latest target. But now, it was finally over. Or at least his tenancy in my house was. The real recovery, for me and for him, was still a long way off. It's been 3 months since Daniel left. The silence in the house is still sometimes unsettling, but mostly it's just peaceful. I'm still digging myself out of that financial hole. The bank loan is being repaid, painfully out of every paycheck. My savings are non-existent, and the college fund is on hold, which breaks my heart. But the mortgage is paid up. My house is safe. My home is mine again. Leo seems happier. He doesn't ask about Uncle Daniel anymore. Or if he does, it's a quick, almost forgettable question, and he moves on. He's back to his usual self, full of energy and dinosaur facts. That's the biggest win for me, honestly. Seeing him thrive without that underlying tension in the house, that's everything. What I learned, it's not some grand, profound insight. It's simpler, harsher. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, especially when they're actively hurting you in the process. And sometimes, family isn't a free pass for bad behavior. Drawing a line, a hard, painful line, is necessary for your own survival. I used to think being the dependable brother meant always being there, always fixing things. Now I know it means protecting myself and Leo first. My relationship with my parents is still a bit strained. They still call and ask if I've heard from Daniel, if he's okay. I haven't. And I tell them politely that I don't want to know. It feels cold, like I'm abandoning him, but I can't. Not right now. Maybe ever. Lena and I are on better terms. A strange side effect of this whole mess. We're united in protecting Leo, and she's actually been incredibly supportive. It's a small silver lining, I guess. I worry about the future. Will Daniel ever get help? Will I ever trust him again? Will I look back on this with regret or just relief? I don't know. Part of me hopes he's out there, getting the help Rachel said he needs, finding some stability. Another, darker part just wants to forget he ever lived here. I'm still figuring out how to balance that. It's a long road, but at least now it's my road, and I'm walking it on my own 2 feet, not trying to carry anyone else's weight. Thanks for letting me get this all out. It helps just to type it, to see it all laid out like this. It's a lot, I know, but sometimes you just need to tell your story to people who get it.